There are names that history recites with reverence: Shankly, Busby, Clough, the kings who stood at the touchline and made the game their pulpit. But there was one, just as great, who never preached. Bill Nicholson didn't demand loyalty. He lived it. He didn't chase glory. He built it quietly, brick by brick. The double. European Knights, 2 dynasties from nothing. And yet, his name slips further into silence with every passing season. Ask around. Many know Spurs. Few remember the man who made them matter. This isn't nostalgia. This is correction. He never asked for applause. He asked for effort. So if you still believe that football's true architects were the ones who built in silence, who won with dignity, and who left before the lights could betray the game, subscribe now. Because statues fade, but standards? Those echo forever. William Edward Nicholson was born on 26 January 1919 in Scarborough, North Yorkshire, the youngest of 9 children. Raised in hard times, where pride came from effort, not applause. At 17, he joined Tottenham's ground staff in 1936, not as a youth prospect, but as a worker. He scrubbed boots, painted railings, learned respect before reward. Spurs sent him to Northfleet United, their nursery club. It wasn't glamour, but it was Spurs. And Nicholson gave everything, just to belong. He wasn't the quickest, or the most gifted, but he did what others wouldn't. He thought faster, he trained harder, he listened longer. On 27 October 1938, aged 19, he made his Tottenham debut against Blackburn Rovers. No fanfare, just football. He didn't chase glory, he followed orders, understood space, and earned quiet trust, one clean pass at a time. Even then, they saw it. This wasn't just a player. This was a future leader in disguise. He was Spurs before he ever scored, because from day one, Bill Nicholson was already building something, without saying a word. In 1939, war called louder than football. Nicholson joined the Durham Light Infantry, not as a soldier in name only, but as a physical training sergeant, drilling discipline into others. Football paused, but his principles hardened. When peace returned, so did Nicholson. Not for fame, but to finish what he'd started. Under Arthur Rowe, Spurs pioneered something new: push and run. Fast movement, one-touch passing, tactical thought. It suited Nicholson like a second skin, not because it was stylish, but because it was smart. In 1949-50, Spurs won the second division. A year later, 1950-51, they stunned the league and took the first division title. Not with stars, but with system, structure. Nicholson, he was never flashy, but he never misplaced a moment. Then, on 19th May 1951, Bill Nicholson wore the England shirt for the first and only time. Just 19 seconds in, he scored against Portugal. Still the fastest debut goal in English history. 1 cap, 1 goal, 1 memory. Then straight back to Spurs. He didn't ask why, because he wasn't chasing caps. He was building foundations. By 1955, his legs were slowing, but his mind sharper than ever. He retired from playing and stepped into something far more dangerous: coaching. Not to reinvent the game, but to master its hidden order. He became Spurs' first-team coach, guiding from the shadows as the club evolved. His methods weren't loud, they were precise, obsessive, almost surgical. In 1958, he assisted England at the World Cup in Sweden. Quiet on the bench, but the minds around him knew who the sharpest thinker was. Then came October 11th, 1958. Tottenham Hotspur named him manager, no fanfare, no slogans, and then 10-4. His first match, a thunderstorm of goals against Everton. Not a fluke, a warning. Nicholson hadn't just inherited a team, he had plans and patience. He saw football as architecture, angles, discipline, space, intuition, and he was ready to build something no one had seen before, a side that could win with grace, dominate with intelligence, and carry the weight of Tottenham's name with pride. By 1960, Nicholson had finished drawing the blueprint. Now came the sculpture. The names weren't just players, they were instruments in his orchestra. Danny Blanchflower, the philosopher captain. Dave Mackay, the enforcer with a poet's mind. Cliff Jones, John White, Les Allen, Bobby Smith, Maurice Norman, Ron Henry, Peter Baker, Bill Brown. They didn't just pass, they flowed. They didn't just press, they hunted. And in 1960-61, they did the unthinkable. First Division champions, FA Cup winners, the first English side in the 20th century to do the double. Not brute force, not parking the bus. Football that danced, that dominated, that dared. Tottenham weren't just winning. They were evolving the sport. Then came 1963, and with it, immortality in Europe. A 5-1 masterclass against Atletico Madrid in the Cup Winners' Cup final. Spurs became the first British club to lift a European trophy. English football stood taller that night because Nicholson believed it could, but fate cuts without warning. In 1964, John White, the Ghost, died in a lightning strike on a golf course, only 27, irreplaceable. The dynasty staggered, but it didn't collapse, because Nicholson hadn't just built a side, he had built a culture, one that could absorb heartbreak and still remember how to win. Most managers fade after one great team. Nicholson built another. By the late 1960s, the double side was gone, retired, faded, fallen. But Bill wasn't finished. He quietly began again, with different tools, same philosophy. The names shifted, but the mission didn't. Pat Jennings between the posts, hands like magnets, Alan Gilzean, all subtlety and silk, Martin Chivers, thunder in motion, Steve Perryman, young and fearless, Cyril Knowles, Mike England, Joe Kinnear, Ralph Coates, Martin Peters. They didn't wear the same boots, but they walked the same path, and the silver returned. 1967, FA Cup, 1971 and 1973, League Cups, 1972, UEFA Cup. Beating Wolves across 2 legs, Spurs lifting Europe again. He even claimed 3 charity shields, 1961, 1962, 1967, proof that every stage carried his stamp. That's what made Nicholson different. By now, he had won 8 major trophies as manager. Only Sir Matt Busby rivaled that era. But even greatness gets tired. By 1974, the shadows were lengthening, the game was changing, and the man who gave everything was beginning to step away. He walked away not because he couldn't win, but because football had changed. By September 1974, Bill Nicholson had seen enough. The game was turning, rising wages, falling respect, violence in the stands. What once felt sacred now felt compromised. And Bill? He wasn't built to bargain with egos. He resigned quietly, no announcement, no press conference. One of English football's greatest managers walked away without asking for applause. He took a short advisory role at West Ham, but never managed again. He didn't belong to that new world, and he didn't pretend to. "If this is the future," he said privately, "then I've had my time." There was no farewell speech, just silence, and a door closing on one of the purest footballing eras any club ever knew. He didn't write a book, he didn't ask for a statue, and when they offered a testimonial in '74, he said no. But the fans never forgot. 9 years later, they filled White Hart Lane. August 1983, Spurs versus West Ham. Not for trophies, not for league points, but for him. For Bill. And then again, in 2001, they came back. Fiorentina under the lights. One more time, they clapped for the man who built it all. He returned in 1976, not to manage, but to guide. Spotted Hoddle, backed Roberts, Galvin, Mabbott. Built a future he wouldn't take credit for. In 1991, they made him club president. He nodded, thanked them, watched quietly. No medal ever hung from his neck, even when they gave him an OBE in 1975. No speech when they inducted him into the Hall of Fame in 2003, because Bill didn't need honors. He needed standards, and he gave them until his final breath. He died on 23 October 2004, aged 85. No headlines, no farewell tour, just fans outside the old lane, leaving scarves, tears, and whispered thanks. The stadium is new, the seats shine chrome, the money hums louder now than the songs ever did. But some names don't fade, some spirits don't leave. They brought back the Bill Nicholson gates in 2025, polished, restored, and placed where the people still remember. Because you can rebuild bricks, you can't rebuild souls. His name is still spoken in reverent tones. By grandfathers who saw the double, by fathers who watched Chivers, Gilzean, Perryman, by sons who never saw him, but were raised on his standards, and above the tunnel, still carved into the walls of the new cathedral. They say Bill once echoed what Blanchflower had believed: better to fail aiming high than succeed aiming low. It isn't just a quote, it's a demand, a reminder that football isn't about flash, it's about duty. Bill Nicholson gave Spurs that word, and Spurs, at their best, still carry it. He never asked for legacy, he just built it. Every match, every standard, every voice still singing his name is proof that he never left. If you still believe loyalty is greater than limelight, then hit subscribe, because legends like Bill deserve to be remembered forever.